What if the biggest story coming out of Monday Night Raw wasn't the fight we saw in the ring, but the meeting that allegedly happened after the show went off the air? Because while fans were talking about Oba Femi and Bron Breakker nearly tearing each other apart, reports began circulating about something even more shocking. A private conversation, a closed-door meeting, and at the center of it all, Paul Heyman. The same Paul Heyman who helped build Brock Lesnar into a monster. The same Paul Heyman who stood beside Roman Reigns during one of the most dominant championship runs in WWE history. So why would Heyman suddenly be interested in Oba Femi? And if there's any truth to these rumors, what does that mean for Bron Breakker heading into Sunday night's main event? Welcome back to the Ringside Observer. I'm Guy. In this video, we're breaking down the reported backstage meeting between Paul Heyman and Oba Femi, why WWE could be planting the seeds for its next major alliance, and whether Bron Breakker should be very worried about what's coming next. Grab some popcorn and get comfortable because we've got a lot of dots to connect before this one's done. Let's get into it. For months now, WWE has been treating Oba Femi like a future megastar. And honestly, it's not hard to understand why. The man looks like he was created in a laboratory specifically to dominate professional wrestling. He's massive. He's athletic, he's intimidating, and perhaps most importantly, he carries himself like a champion. Every time Oba Femi walks into an arena, he feels different. Not just another wrestler, not just another powerhouse, a genuine attraction. That's why his collision course with Bron Breakker has felt inevitable. Because Bron Breakker represents something very similar. He's explosive, he's intense, he's unpredictable. And he has spent the last few years proving that he's one of WWE's fastest rising stars. When these two men finally stood face to face on Raw, the tension was impossible to ignore. Neither man backed down. Neither man looked intimidated. And by the end of the segment, it felt less like a wrestling rivalry and more like two forces of nature preparing for impact. But according to recent reports and backstage speculation, the story might not stop there. Because after Raw ended, rumors began spreading that Paul Heyman was seen speaking privately with Oba Femi. Now let's be clear, WWE has not officially confirmed any alliance, but the rumor itself is fascinating. Because Paul Heyman doesn't randomly attach himself to people. Every major Heyman partnership has meant something. When Heyman aligned himself with Brock Lesnar, Lesnar became one of the most dominant stars in wrestling history. When Heyman aligned himself with Roman Reigns, the Tribal Chief era was born. So naturally, when fans hear Heyman's name connected to Oba Femi, they immediately start asking questions. What does Heyman see in him? And perhaps more importantly, what does WWE see in him? Because if this story is heading where many fans think it's heading, WWE may be preparing Oba Femi for something much bigger than just one match against Bron Breakker. Think about it. Oba Femi already has the physical tools. He already looks like a main event star. The one thing he doesn't have yet is a legendary strategist standing beside him. That's where Paul Heyman changes everything. Heyman doesn't make people stronger. He makes them more dangerous. He takes strengths and amplifies them. He hides weaknesses. He controls narratives. And he understands how to make an audience believe that a superstar is unstoppable. Imagine Oba Femi walking into arenas with Paul Heyman introducing him. Imagine Heyman calling him the future of WWE. Imagine Heyman convincing the world that Oba Femi isn't just another champion, but the next dominant force in professional wrestling. That's a scary thought. And if you're Bron Breakker, it's probably a terrifying one. Because Bron isn't just fighting Oba Femi anymore. He could potentially be fighting the influence of Paul Heyman too. That's a completely different challenge. We've seen Bron Breakker overcome powerhouses before. We've seen him survive chaos. But surviving a Heyman-backed superstar is another story entirely. History tells us that when Paul Heyman chooses someone, that person usually ends up at the top of the mountain. Which brings us to the biggest question of all. Is this simply a short-term storyline? Or is WWE planting the seeds for its next major power alliance? Because let's be honest, the company is always looking toward the future. Roman Reigns won't wrestle forever. The current generation won't stay on top forever. Eventually, WWE needs new faces to carry the company, and Oba Femi feels like someone WWE could build around for the next decade. That's why these rumors matter. Not because a meeting allegedly happened backstage, but because of what that meeting could represent. The beginning of a new era, the rise of a new monster, and possibly the creation of WWE's next Paul Heyman Guy. Now, whether this alliance actually becomes reality remains to be seen. But one thing is certain. After Monday Night Raw, people aren't just talking about Bron Breakker versus Oba Femi anymore. They're talking about Paul Heyman. And whenever Paul Heyman's name enters the conversation, things tend to get very interesting very quickly. If these reports turn out to be true, WWE may have just created one of the most dangerous combinations in modern wrestling. Oba Femi already has the power. Paul Heyman already has the brain. Put those two together, and Bron Breakker could be facing a completely different challenge than anyone originally expected. And if this is truly the beginning of a Heyman-Femi partnership, the rest of the WWE locker room should probably start paying attention too. Because history has shown us that when Paul Heyman chooses a superstar, championships usually aren't far behind. Now I want to hear from you. Should Paul Heyman become Oba Femi's advocate? Is Oba Femi the next true Paul Heyman Guy? Who wins at Sunday night's main event, Bron Breakker or Oba Femi? And if Heyman really joins Femi, could they become the most dominant duo in WWE? Drop your predictions in the comments below. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications. And as always, thank you for watching The Ringside Observer. I'm Kai, and I'll see you in the next one.